They just banned the whole damn format. All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome. It's banned and restricted day here, and Wizards of the Coast has pulled no punches. They have banned seven cards in standard. We're going to go all over the cards that are banned, my thoughts on each, the effects it'll have on the format, and so much more. So let's rock and roll. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe before we start here. Support the content, support the channel. Let's do this. The first and perhaps most obvious ban here is Corey Steelcutter. And Is It Prowess, although it's been pulling a sub 50% win rate both at the Pro Tour and at the Spotlight Series last weekend, is clearly an issue. This is a card that's not a power level for standard, much more akin to a modern power level card, super powerful with 1 mana spells, has the issue of it is so hard to profitably interact with. If your opponent plays correctly and like plays it and a spell immediately, they will always get the token, even if you destroy it. Some decks can't destroy it. And it's really, really limiting in the format to what other decks can be played. You've seen an almost evaporation of any black kind of mid-range decks relying on removal spells because of how effective Steelcutter is against removal, even though removal is good against the rest of the Is It Prowess deck and the mono red deck. So Corey Steelcutter here. This is almost a foregone conclusion. Nothing super surprising. Obviously, Is It Prowess will not be a deck anymore in its current shape and form. We have seen Is It decks based around Vivi and Soul Cauldron. We've seen Prowess decks, before Corey Steelcutter that will be aggressive, but not nearly as resilient to removal. Kind of like Prowess used to be, where Prowess was always a deck that I would play a lot on stream, and it was always good if your opponent couldn't kill your creatures, but once they would kill a creature or two, it would fall apart fairly quickly. So Cutter's gone, no surprise here, big change to the format. That's going to unlock a lot of different decks in the format, but there's much more to go. Next up, and I'm sure all the haters are really, really happy about this one, Monstrous Rage has been banned. Now, I want to make it clear, I have a reputation for defending Monstrous Rage. I'm not like super upset about this. I think that banning cards is a net negative for Magic, and you should only do it if you absolutely need to. I didn't think that Monstrous Rage is a card that needs to be banned. I'm not like super upset it's banned. It kind of is what it is. It's obviously a powerful card. Slows the format down. Sure, whatever. Monstrous Rage, a big part of both mono red, and then honestly, once Cutter is gone, Prowess decks have to get more aggressive, so probably would be a player there. I don't think Monstrous Rage, I think I didn't explain myself as well as I could have in the recent video I put up about Monstrous Rage, where Monstrous Rage is a card that before the mouse package was printed in Bloomborough, it was legal for like, a year or whatever, saw very little play. It is extremely powerful in conjunction with Heartfire Hero, Manifold Mouse, and then in the Prowess style decks of Monastery, Swiftspear, and Friends, which were very fragile prior to the printing of Steelcutter. Monstrous Rage was good there also, but won't be as good without Cutter giving the resilience. So it's a card that is very, very powerful. It's very, very good if you're trying to block as your primary means of defense against the red deck, but it's also a card that's particularly bad against a lot of removal spells and control decks. A card you would often board out against decks with heavy removal spells. They're either heavy black decks or like heavy control decks playing, all Wrath of Gods and instant removal spells, where you just don't ever want to cast that card on your creature and have it die in response. So I think Monstrous Rage being banned kind of stinks a little bit, but honestly, it is what it is. It's not that bad. It's fine for the format overall. I thought it was really cool to see a powerful pump spell in standard, but it is what it is. So there you go, haters. I hope you're happy. Well done. Let's hear it for the haters. Monstrous Rage is banned. There you go. Now you can stop screaming on the internet about it. Go find something else to scream about, all right? So Monstrous Rage is gone. That'll have a big effect on mono red, but Monstrous Rage is not the only mono red card that is gone. Our next banning here is Heartfire Hero. And not Manifold Mouse. Manifold Mouse was the card that was called for by me and a decent amount of other folks as well as the one card in the mouse package to get rid of. Wizards of the Coast is going for Heartfire Hero instead, which I think is also fine. I think that it puts a pretty serious damper in red to see both Monstrous Rage and Heartfire Hero go. I don't think Manifold Mouse is nearly as good without Heartfire Hero in the mix. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 ban where you ban the Heartfire Hero, and the Manifold Mouse isn't as good either. I think without Heartfire Hero, Monstrous Rage, Manifold Mouse is basically unplayable now, so it's like a soft ban, which is kind of shitty because you don't get your wild cards back, and the card's not, really playable anymore anyway, but whatever. But Heartfire Hero is obviously really, really good. There's a clear desire here to kind of not wipe mono red off the map, but wipe out the way it has been, because mono red has been very, very good and slow the format down, which is a good goal. I think the format was obviously way too fast prior to this. Hard to have brews that can come in and do their thing with so much pressure to have a defense set up by turn 4. You know, whether it be multiple removal spells or your own linear plan. So Heartfire Hero going, I guess, isn't actually as surprising as it seems, because it was nerfed in Alchemy, so it was clearly a card that was on their radar. Mono Red's going to look pretty different after this. Going to go back to being more burn-based and more fragile, and it's going to open up the slower sphere of the format, which you might not enjoy, honestly. There's a lot of really powerful kind of ramp options, a big, powerful, overwhelming, top-end options. It ends up being a slugfest. We'll see. There's some bans to help that as well to come in a little bit. But yeah, Heartfire Hero is gone. I think it's just fine. I think it's just very similar to banning Manifold Mouse. If you're going to ban Monstrous Rage and Heartfire Hero, you basically ban Manifold Mouse also. So Monstrous Rage gone, Heartfire Hero is gone. Mono Red players are very, very sad today. But wait, folks, we are not done. More bans, and the next one up is Abuelo's Awakening. And Abuelo's Awakening is the key card in the Omniscience combo decks. Banning Omniscience is basically the same thing as banning Abuelo's Awakening. The fear here is that Omniscience will be legal for the next 5 years. It is in Foundations. I can see not wanting to ban a flashy Foundations card, because I kind of admit you're wrong about putting it in Foundations anyway, which is kind of true, but, whatever. So banning Awakening is fine. Are there other ways to reanimate Omniscience? Yes, but not as efficient. I think that they really underestimated the fragility of Abuelo's Awakening. A reanimation spell that could happen on turn 4 is usually not the range they like to see in Standard, but making it a 1/1 creature, in theory, makes it more vulnerable to a Burst Lightning, or a Cutdown, or random kill spells that normally wouldn't be good against a combo deck that are good. But because of how Omniscience works, because once the Omniscience is in play, you could play a second copy of Omniscience for free and then break up that line entirely, or if counterspells up, doesn't really work out the way you'd want it to. And with all the Dragon cards added to Omniscience recently, the deck went from being kind of a tier 2 fringe combo deck to being a true powerhouse in the format. All the Dragon cards are really, really good in that deck. So I like this ban. I think Omniscience is kind of deck where, like, player goes to their first F&M, they have their cat deck or whatever, and their opponent just, combos on them on turn 4, and then takes 10 minutes to do it. Is a really bad feeling. That's not a thing you want to see in Standard on average. So happy with this ban. Abuelo's is gone. Will there be a different Omniscience deck that can come up with some different reanimation effect? We'll see. Kind of fun to try, but we just need to be super careful about what reanimation cards they print for enchantments in the next 5 years, which is kind of a scary place to be. But Omniscience, get out of here. Sorry, combo players. Find a different deck to play. Next up, what I think is a pretty good preemptive ban, is Up the Beanstock. Now, Up the Beanstock is really, really fun. It's a really, really powerful card. Of course, Domain's been a good deck in Standard now for quite a while, and it's also seen play in other fun spots like Simic Crabs or Golgari Graveyard. But there's no doubt that Up the Beanstalk, alongside the Overlords and Leyline Binding and so on, is extremely powerful. Now, Binding and Zur are rotating when the next set comes out in a few months. So that part of the Beanstalk engine is leaving, but still got Ride's End and a bunch of other cheap cards that are actually expensive. And Beanstalk is a card like Corey Steelcutter, where it's extremely powerful because it costs 2 mana and it replaces itself immediately. So whenever you deal with an Up the Beanstalk, you could just say, why not just destroy it? Well, they play Beanstalk, they draw a card, and you disenchant it. You are down a card. And for 2 mana, for a 2 mana play from your opponent, where the floor is, draw a card, they discard a card for 2 mana, and the ceiling is draw 15 cards over the course of a game. That's a really, really powerful effect. And both Cutter and Beanstalk have that sort of ability to always guarantee value at a super low cost, which is very, very powerful. So I think Beanstalk being banned is fine. It will definitely change the nature of the go large decks in the format. I think that if you remove Mono Red and Izzet and Omniscience, and if you were to leave Up the Beanstalk, we would probably get into a Domain hellscape, even though that Domain is a much more targetable deck. It's a deck that's much easier to target and beat in certain ways, rather than a deck like Cutter or Mono Red, where all the cards are so cheap. But anyway, Up the Beanstalk is fine, I think. It's had its day. It'll change how the ramp decks are played. And there are a lot of really big, powerful cards in the format. We'll still see ramp decks and powerful, big stuff decks. But Beanstalk is gone. I think it's reasonable. It was one of the cards I discussed in my video last week. So, Up the Beanstalk players, I'm sorry. Domain players, I'm sorry. There's still plenty of big cards for you to play, but card advantage will not be as easy to come by. Have you heard about our Lord and Savior Stock Up? Well, that might be the tool for you. Now, you might think we're done here. because those are the cards definitely on the watch list. Heartfire Hero or Manifold Mouse, whatever. But clearly, Izzet Cutter, Mono Red, Omniscience, and then up to Beantock were the ones on the major radar. But Wizards of the Coast is not done yet. This is a 1-year ban announcement. They only do this once a year, and with the rotations happening, less frequently with 3 rotation and so on and so forth. They are not missing here. They are taking the axe out full on. Our next banned card is Hopeless Nightmare. And Hopeless Nightmare is a card that isn't really seeing any play in Standard right now. Of course, kind of due to other cards being more powerful, but really powerful effect that is kind of annoying to play against the Pixie decks, whether they are Black-White Pixie or Esper Pixie. And before Core Steelcutter, that was one of the major pillars of the format. And it's definitely a kind of a miserable play experience where you just, discard a card, discard a card, discard a card. That being said, Opposite of Bailoff and Wiltleaf Leech are legal to kind of punish that kind of effect. I don't think the Pixie decks were anything obnoxious. This is kind of my fear with this ban announcement, where you just ban almost every deck in the format, right? That's the kind of catch-22 of banning, where it comes down to if you give Mouse a cookie kind of scenario, where now you've banned all these cards, there's just going to be another crop of new decks that are the best decks, and what do you do now? You just ban those too, So there are plenty of cards that are good and annoying to play against. Hopeless Nightmare is one of them, and we're just going to see the next boogeyman come up. And then when you establish the sort of ban culture, now folks get their pitchforks out every time they lose to a card too many times and start calling for bans. So whatever, Hopeless Nightmare's banned. It was kind of annoying, sure. But this is where we start to hit the point of the ban list where I start really, really worrying about going way too overboard. And again, it's funny for me because this ban list is great for me. I'm a content creator. I now have a bunch more content to make, right? We have a whole new format. I already own all the cards. Whatever, this is great for me. My fear is not for me. It's not for you. It's not for the super entrenched player. My fear is that trying to get players back into Paper Magic, back into stores that buy their first deck for FNM. This is so bad for that because so many players are going to walk to their store next week with their deck and they're going to say, sorry, you can't play that anymore. And they're going to say, well, fuck this. I'm going to go play Xbox or whatever, So we'll see. But Hopeless Nightmare's gone. I don't think his ban was necessary. Whatever. Then we come to our last ban, where we really are going off a deep end, with the banning of This Town Ain't Big Enough. And this is the point where I go, all right, guys, there's got to be some good cards in the format, or you can't just ban every card that is good. Now, This Town Ain't Big Enough is a very good card. I think that This Town Ain't Big Enough in conjunction with Hopeless Nightmare is a large part of the problem with This Town Ain't Big Enough. Now, it sees play in Izzet, it's seen play in Bounce decks, it's really good Stormchaser talent, I get it. But Hopeless Nightmare was that one powerful, proactive thing to put in play that was not creature-based. So it was good against combo decks, good against control decks, good against ramp decks. And that was part of the allure of the self-bounce package that made This Town Ain't Big Enough so good. Now, there are still going to be the Stormchaser talent, This Town Ain't Big Enough loops available. That is kind of annoying as well, but something's got to be good. Something will be good in the format. There will always be best things to do and most powerful interactions. This was one of them. And now it's no longer a thing. So again, this ban doesn't even really hit anyone in particular. The Pixie deck wasn't really doing anything in the format. It saw a little play in Izzet, sure. But again, this is where I think we're going off the deep end, where we're going way too far into ban culture. And at this point now, basically every deck in the format has been banned. Golgari Roots survives, I suppose. Maybe another deck or two, is still there. I guess the Soul Cauldron VV deck, but for the most part, every deck has taken a major hit. We're going to have a whole new format, which is fun for online players and entrenched players who have a bunch of cards, but devastating for paper play, which I'm really, really worried about. So for the most part, that is it. You can see here, of course, no changes to Pioneer, no changes to Modern. They announced they would not change the RCQ format during the season. No Legacy. Some folks are mad about that one. I know Brian Koval and friends are not happy with the state of Legacy right now, but that's not really me. Vintage, Pauper, not really me. Alchemy, whatever. Pioneer Best of One, Tibalt Trickery's banned. Sure, annoying card. Probably just ban it regular Pioneer because the card's just obnoxious. But Historic Counterspell is unbanned. That's its own can of worms. I'll get to a different point. But I want to know what you think. And I caution folks about this sort of hyperactive ban culture. This is a little more than I wanted. I'm still gonna have a lot of fun with it. I love new formats, but I'm really scared for the FNM player, for the paper players. Let me know what you think. Are you that player whose deck was just banned? And are you not going to go to FNM anymore? Are you going to skip those RCQs? Are you going to play a different format? Go play some Commander, whatever it might be. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Make fun of me for Monstrous Rage stuff and go nuts. Like, comment, subscribe, support. Love y'all. And I'll see you soon for some brand new standard content this week.